My name is Valeria. I am 36 years old, and 3 days ago I buried the man I thought was my soulmate. We had 12 beautiful years together. At least that is what I believed. But standing at the reception after the funeral, my sister Denise pulled me aside and destroyed everything I knew about my marriage with 6 words. Brandon is Marcus's son, not Derek's. Before I tell you how a lawyer's final page changed everything, let me know where you are watching from. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because what Marcus left behind was not just money. It was the truth. I met Marcus Reynolds 14 years ago at a rare book exhibition in downtown Nashville. I was 22, fresh out of college, working my first job at the public library on Church Street. He was 27, already running his own architecture firm, wearing a navy blazer that made his green eyes stand out like emeralds against dark water. I remember the exact moment I saw him. He was standing in front of a glass case containing a first edition of The Great Gatsby, and he was not looking at the book. He was looking at me. Most men would have looked away when caught staring. Marcus smiled instead. It was the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We talked for 3 hours that night. About books, about architecture, about the way old buildings in Nashville were being torn down to make room for condos that all looked the same. He walked me to my car when the exhibition closed, and before I could say goodbye, he asked if I would have coffee with him the next day. That coffee date turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekends spent exploring antique bookshops in East Nashville. Weekends turned into a year of falling so deeply in love that I could not imagine my life without him. Marcus proposed on a Tuesday afternoon, not at a fancy restaurant, not on a beach at sunset. He proposed at the same coffee shop where we had our first date, a tiny place called Bongo Java on Belmont Boulevard. He got down on one knee between the mismatched chairs and asked me to spend the rest of my life with him. I said yes before he even finished the question. Our wedding was simple. We held it in the backyard of my grandmother's house in Murfreesboro under a trellis covered in white roses. Marcus wrote his own vows. He promised to always be my home. He promised that no matter where life took us, I would never have to face anything alone. I believed every word. For 12 years, I believed every word. We built a beautiful life together in Germantown, in a restored Victorian house with a wraparound porch and a garden full of lavender. Marcus designed a private reading room just for me with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a window seat overlooking the backyard. He knew how much I loved books. He knew how much I needed quiet spaces. There was only one shadow over our happiness. We could not have children. I was diagnosed with severe endometriosis when I was 28. The doctors tried everything. Medications. Surgeries. Treatments that left me exhausted and heartbroken. By the time I was 31, the damage was too severe. I had to have a hysterectomy. I remember lying in the hospital bed after the surgery, convinced that Marcus would leave me. What man wants a wife who cannot give him children? But Marcus held my hand and said something I will never forget. You are enough for me, Valeria. You have always been enough. I cried for hours, not from sadness, from relief, from gratitude, from loving a man who loved me exactly as I was. Or so I thought. Let me tell you about my sister Denise. Denise is 3 years younger than me. She has dyed blonde hair, gray eyes, and a way of making everything about herself. Growing up, she was always jealous of something I had. My grades, my friends, my bedroom that was slightly bigger than hers. Our mother Gloria raised us alone after our father left when I was 6. She worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. I understood from a young age that nothing in life comes free. I studied hard, earned a scholarship to Vanderbilt, and built a career I was proud of. Denise took a different path. She dropped out of community college at 19 when she got pregnant. The father was Derek Lawson, a mechanic she had been dating for 3 months. They got married in a courthouse ceremony, moved into a cramped apartment in Antioch, and had a baby boy they named Brandon. Derek left when Brandon was 3. He moved to Texas, stopped paying child support, and basically disappeared from their lives. Denise blamed everyone but herself. She blamed Derek for being irresponsible. She blamed our mother for not helping more. She blamed me for having a nice house and a successful husband. Over the years, Denise borrowed money from me more times than I can count. She always called it borrowing, but she never paid back a single dollar. The rent is due and I am short. Brandon needs new shoes for school. My car broke down and I cannot get to work without it. I gave her money every time. Thousands of dollars over the years. Because she was my sister. Because Brandon was my nephew. Because family was supposed to help each other. Marcus never liked Denise. At family gatherings, they barely spoke. I thought it was because they had nothing in common. Marcus was educated, ambitious, and reserved. Denise was loud, dramatic, and always looking for a handout. Looking back, I realized their distance had nothing to do with personality differences. They were hiding something from me, something that would shatter everything I believed about my marriage. 3 weeks before the funeral, life was normal. Or at least it felt normal. Marcus left for work that morning the same way he always did. He kissed me goodbye at the front door, told me he loved me, and drove off in his silver BMW. I went to work at the library, helped a teenager find research materials for her history project, and ate lunch at my desk while reading the latest novel from my favorite author. At 11:15, my phone rang. The caller ID said Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I remember thinking it must be a mistake. Maybe someone had the wrong number. Maybe it was a survey about patient satisfaction. It was not a mistake. Mrs. Reynolds, the voice said, your husband has been brought to our emergency department. We need you to come immediately. I do not remember driving to the hospital. I do not remember parking my car or running through the automatic doors or shouting Marcus's name at the reception desk. I only remember a doctor in blue scrubs taking my arm and leading me to a small room with no windows. Mrs. Reynolds. I am sorry. Your husband suffered a massive heart attack. We did everything we could, but we were unable to save him. Marcus was 41 years old. He worked out 4 times a week. He did not smoke. He barely drank. His last physical exam 3 months earlier showed perfect cholesterol, perfect blood pressure, perfect everything. And just like that, he was gone. The 3 days between his death and his funeral passed like a fever dream. I remember fragments, choosing a casket, writing an obituary, accepting condolences from people whose faces I could not focus on. Marcus's lawyer, a man named Harold Pierce, called to say he would read the will after the funeral. I told him I did not care about the will. I did not care about money or property or anything else. I just wanted my husband back. The funeral was held at Woodlawn Memorial on a gray Thursday morning. Over 200 people came. Colleagues from Marcus's firm, clients whose buildings he had designed, friends from our neighborhood, family members I had not seen in years. I stood next to the casket in a simple black dress, holding a single lavender stem. Lavender was the first flower Marcus ever gave me. He said it reminded him of my eyes. Denise arrived with Brandon. She wore black, but her makeup was heavy and her expression was strange. She did not look sad. She looked expectant, like she was waiting for something. I should have paid attention to that look. I should have known something was coming. The reception after the funeral was held at our house in Germantown. It was Marcus's wish, written in instructions he had given his lawyer years ago. If I die, let people gather in our home. Let them remember me where I was happiest. The house filled with quiet conversations and the smell of catered food I could not eat. People pressed my hands and told me how sorry they were. They shared memories of Marcus, the building he designed for the children's hospital, The pro bono work he did for nonprofit organizations, the way he always remembered everyone's name. I stood in the kitchen feeling like a ghost in my own home. My best friend Margaret stayed close. We had worked together at the library for 10 years. She knew me better than anyone except Marcus. She kept her hand on my back, steering me away from conversations that went on too long, making sure I had water to drink even though I could not eat. Around 3 in the afternoon, the crowd began to thin. Colleagues returned to their offices. Neighbors returned to their lives. Soon, only a handful of people remained. Margaret. My mother Gloria, sitting in her wheelchair in the corner of the living room, Denise hovering near the dining room table like a vulture waiting for something to die. And Brandon. My 8-year-old nephew sitting on the floor with his tablet oblivious to everything around him. I looked at him for a moment. Really looked at him. He had dark brown hair and green eyes, the same shade of green as Marcus's eyes. Something stirred in my chest. A recognition I could not name. Before I could examine the feeling, Denise approached me. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Alone." I looked at Margaret, who raised an eyebrow. "It is fine," I told her. "Can you take Mom and Brandon outside for a few minutes?" Margaret hesitated, but did as I asked. She wheeled Gloria toward the back porch, and Brandon followed, still absorbed in whatever game he was playing. The door closed behind them. Denise and I stood alone in the living room. She did not waste time with small talk. "Do you know who Brandon looks like?" she asked. I was confused by the question. "He looks like Derek, I suppose." "His father." Denise laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "Derek has brown eyes and blonde hair. Brandon has green eyes and dark hair. Think about it, Valeria. Think hard." My heart started beating faster. "What are you talking about?" "Brandon is not Derek's son," Denise said. "Brandon is Marcus's son." The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. "That is not possible," I said. "Marcus would never—" "He would, and he did." Denise interrupted. 8 years ago, before Brandon was born, Marcus and I were together. It only happened once, but once was enough. "You are lying, I am not lying, and I have proof?" She pulled out her phone and opened a photo album. She turned the screen toward me. The first photo showed Marcus and Denise at what looked like a cabin somewhere. They were standing close together, smiling at the camera. The second photo showed Marcus holding a newborn baby. Brandon. The date stamp said 8 years ago. The third photo showed Marcus pushing Brandon on a swing at a playground I recognized. It was less than a mile from our house, those days when Marcus said he was meeting clients, those afternoons when he came home late and said traffic was bad. He was with them, with Denise, with his son. I felt sick. Actually physically sick. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you do this to me?" Why Denise's eyes flashed with something ugly. "Because you always had everything. The scholarships, the career, the perfect husband. What did I have? A deadbeat ex and a kid I could barely afford to feed." "He was my husband," I said. My voice cracked on the words. "And he was the father of my child. Now he is dead. And I want what is mine." Denise reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers. "This is Marcus's will," she said. "His real will. Not whatever that lawyer has been keeping. Marcus wrote this 6 months ago. He left 50% of everything to Brandon. I am the one who manages that money until Brandon turns 18. I took the papers with trembling hands. The handwriting looked like Marcus's. The signature looked authentic. "You see," Denise said, "Marcus knew Brandon was his son. He wanted to take care of him. And now you are going to honor his wishes." I looked up at her. "What do you want?" "I want what Brandon is owed. Half of everything. The house, the savings, the company. Or I go public with the whole story. Everyone will know Marcus Reynolds was a cheater who fathered a child with his wife's sister. Is that how you want him remembered?" I could not speak, could not think, could not breathe. Denise smiled. The same smile she used to give me when we were children and she had broken one of my toys. "You have 1 week to decide," she said. "The lawyer is reading the official will on Friday. If you do not agree to my terms before then, I will tell everyone the truth at that meeting, in front of whoever is there." She walked to the door and paused with her hand on the handle. "Think carefully, sister." Then she was gone, calling for Brandon, climbing into her car, driving away. I stood in my living room surrounded by leftover funeral flowers and the lingering smell of food I had not eaten. And I realized that the man I had loved for 12 years was not the man I thought he was. Margaret found me on the floor of the living room 20 minutes later. I had not moved since Denise left. I just sat there on the hardwood, staring at the photos on my phone that I had made Denise send me before she drove away. Marcus and Denise at that cabin, Marcus holding Brandon, Marcus pushing Brandon on the swings. 12 years of marriage. 12 years of lies. "Val," Margaret said, dropping to her knees beside me. "What happened? What did Denise say?" I told her everything. The affair, Brandon's paternity, the will Denise had shown me, the ultimatum. Margaret listened without interrupting. When I finished, she shook her head slowly. "That will could be forged," she said. "Denise is capable of anything. The handwriting looks real. The signature looks real. That does not mean it is real. Val, you need to talk to Marcus's lawyer. Harold Pierce has been handling Marcus's legal affairs for over a decade. He would know if this document is legitimate. I do not know if I want to know the truth," I said. "Part of me wants to just give her whatever she wants and make this go away." Margaret grabbed my shoulders. "Listen to me. If Denise is lying, you cannot let her win. And if she is telling the truth, you deserve to know exactly what Marcus did and why. Either way, you need facts before you make any decisions." She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and doing are two different things. That night I lay in bed alone for the first time in 12 years. I kept reaching for Marcus's pillow, expecting to feel the warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing. There was nothing but cold sheets and silence. I did not sleep. Instead, I opened my laptop and searched through old emails, old text messages, old calendar entries. I was looking for signs I had missed, evidence that should have told me something was wrong, and I found them. March 15th, 6 years ago. Marcus's calendar said client meeting 4 p.m., but his credit card statement showed a charge at a restaurant in Franklin at 4:30. A restaurant I had never heard of, a restaurant an hour away from any of his clients. July 8th, 5 years ago. Marcus said he was working late, his phone was off. He did not answer any of my calls. He came home at midnight smelling like soap from a shower he had not taken at our house. December 23rd, 4 years ago. Christmas Eve. I asked Marcus if he wanted to go shopping for last-minute gifts. He said he had already done all his shopping, but his credit card showed purchases at a toy store. Purchases for toys appropriate for a 4-year-old boy. We did not know any 4-year-old boys, except Brandon. Every memory I examined was poisoned now, every tender moment potentially fake. Had Marcus been thinking about Denise when he held me? Had he been wishing Brandon was with us when we celebrated holidays alone? I closed the laptop and cried until the sun came up. 2 days later, I drove to the offices of Pierce and Associates on Church Street. Harold Pierce was a distinguished man in his early 70s, with silver hair and gold-rimmed glasses. He had handled Marcus's legal affairs since Marcus founded his architecture firm. If anyone knew the truth about Marcus's will, it was him. "Mrs. Reynolds," he said as I sat down across from his mahogany desk, "I am deeply sorry for your loss. Marcus was a good man." Was he, I thought. Was he really? I did not say that out loud. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out the papers Denise had given me. Someone gave me this, I said. They claim it is Marcus's real will. Mr. Pierce took the papers and examined them carefully. His expression did not change, but I saw his eyes narrow slightly as he read. After a long moment, he looked up. Mrs. Reynolds, this document is not the will I prepared for Marcus, so it is fake. He hesitated. The signature appears authentic, but there are problems. A valid will requires witness signatures. This document has none. Additionally, the date on this will indicates it was signed 6 months ago. At that time, Marcus was in London working on a major project. He could not have signed this document in Nashville. I felt a small flicker of hope. So Denise forged it. It appears that way, however, there is something else you need to know. My hope died as quickly as it had been born. Marcus asked me to conduct a confidential DNA test approximately 2 years ago, Mr. Pierce said. A test to determine the paternity of a child named Brandon Lawson. The room seemed to shrink around me. What were the results? Mr. Pierce opened a drawer and removed a manila folder. The test confirmed that Marcus Reynolds is Brandon Lawson's biological father. I think I made a sound. A gasp. Or a sob. Or something in between. Mr. Pierce waited patiently while I tried to compose myself. Why, I finally managed to say. Why did he do the test? Why did he not tell me? I cannot speak to his motivations entirely, Mr. Pierce said. But I can tell you this. He reached into the folder and removed an envelope. Marcus left this letter for you. He instructed me to give it to you only if you specifically asked about Brandon or Denise. I took the envelope. My name was written on the front in Marcus's handwriting. I will give you privacy, Mr. Pierce said. When you are ready, we can discuss the actual will. He left the room, closing the door softly behind him. I sat alone in that office, holding the last words my husband would ever say to me. And then I opened the envelope and began to read. My dearest Valeria, if you are reading this, then you have learned about Brandon. I am sorry. I am so deeply sorry. Not for the act itself, though, that was unforgivable, but for the cowardice that prevented me from telling you the truth while I was alive. 8 years ago, we were struggling to conceive. You were going through treatment after treatment, and every failure broke your heart a little more. I felt helpless. I felt like I was failing you as a husband. Denise approached me during one of our lowest moments. You were at a doctor's appointment, another one that would end in disappointment. I was home alone drinking more than I should have. She showed up at our door with some excuse about needing to borrow something. One thing led to another. I will not make excuses. What I did was wrong. It was a betrayal of everything our marriage stood for. It happened once. Only once. I regretted it immediately. I told Denise it could never happen again, and I meant it. I have never touched her since that night. When Denise told me she was pregnant, I did not believe the child was mine. She was still with Derek at the time. I convinced myself Brandon was his son, not mine. 2 years ago, Denise started demanding money. She threatened to tell you everything if I did not pay. I should have told you then. I should have trusted you to understand. Instead, I paid, like a coward. But I also got suspicious. Why was she so certain Brandon was mine? So I arranged for a DNA test. The results confirmed what she had been claiming all along. Brandon is my son. I wanted to tell you, I wanted to come clean about everything, but every time I tried, I could not bear the thought of losing you. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Valeria. The thought of your eyes looking at me with disgust instead of love was more than I could endure. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I planned for the future. I changed my will to protect you while also providing for Brandon. I made sure Denise could never use our son as a weapon against you. I know this letter does not make up for what I did. I know you may never forgive me, but please believe this one truth. I loved you. From the moment I saw you at that book exhibition to the last morning I kissed you goodbye, I loved you with everything I had. You are enough. You have always been enough, and I am sorry I was not brave enough to be the husband you deserved. Forgive me if you can. Marcus. I read the letter 3 times. By the third reading, the paper was spotted with tears I did not remember crying. Marcus was not innocent. He had betrayed me in the worst possible way, but he had also spent years trying to protect me from the consequences of that betrayal. I did not know what to feel. I only knew that the will Denise had was a fraud, and the truth was more complicated than she wanted me to believe. I wiped my eyes and called for Mr. Pierce. It was time to find out what Marcus had really left behind. Mr. Pierce returned to his office and sat down across from me. His expression was patient, sympathetic, and completely unreadable in the way that good lawyers learn to be. "Mrs. Reynolds," he said, "are you prepared to discuss the actual will?" I nodded. I had just read the most painful letter of my life. Whatever came next could not possibly hurt more than what I had already learned. Or so I thought. Before we proceed to the formal reading on Friday, Mr. Pierce continued, "I want to prepare you for what you will hear. Marcus updated his will 18 months ago after he received the DNA results. He made significant changes at that time." "What kind of changes?" Mr. Pierce folded his hands on the desk. "The bulk of the estate, including the house, your joint savings, and Marcus's share of Reynolds Architecture, goes to you. However, Marcus also established a trust fund for Brandon Lawson." My stomach tightened. "How much 40% of the liquid assets?" "Approximately $480,000 at current valuations." I exhaled slowly. That was less than Denise's forged will demanded, but it was still a substantial sum. "There are conditions," Mr. Pierce added. "Significant conditions." "What kind of conditions?" He opened a file and removed several pages of dense legal text. "The trust fund is managed by you, Mrs. Reynolds, not by Denise Lawson. You have sole discretion over how the money is dispersed." Me. Why me? Marcus believed Denise would misuse the funds if given control. He wanted the money to benefit Brandon directly. Education expenses, medical care, necessities, not vacations for Denise, not designer handbags, not rent for apartments Denise cannot afford. I thought about all the money I had given Denise over the years, the loans that were never repaid, the emergencies that seemed to happen every month. Marcus knew his former lover better than I did. "There is more," Mr. Pierce said. "If there is any evidence that Denise attempts to access the trust funds for personal use, guardianship of the trust transfers entirely to you with additional legal protections against further claims." Meaning what? Meaning if Denise tries to steal from her own son's trust fund, she loses any connection to it whatsoever. I sat back in my chair. Marcus had thought of everything. He had anticipated Denise's greed and built walls around Brandon's future. "What happens if Denise challenges the will in court?" I asked. Mr. Pierce smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. "If Denise Lawson challenges any provision of this will through legal action, the entire trust fund will be donated to a scholarship fund at the public school Brandon currently attends. Brandon will still benefit, but Denise will have no access to any portion of the money, not even for his education. She would get nothing." Precisely. I thought about Denise standing in my living room waving that forged will in my face, threatening to expose Marcus, threatening to humiliate me. She thought she had all the power. She had no idea. "Mrs. Reynolds, Mr. Pierce said I should warn you that Denise may still make a scene at the formal reading. She appears to believe her fraudulent document will supersede the actual will. She may not react well when she learns the truth." "I do not care how she reacts," I said. "I am done protecting her from the consequences of her choices." Mr. Pierce nodded. In that case, I will see you on Friday. 10 a.m. I suggest bringing a friend for support. I stood up and shook his hand. Thank you, Mr. Pierce, for everything. He walked me to the door. Mrs. Reynolds, he said as I stepped into the hallway. Marcus made mistakes, but he loved you. That was obvious to anyone who knew him. I hope you can find peace with that truth, even if you cannot find forgiveness. I did not answer. I was not sure what peace looked like anymore. But I knew one thing for certain. On Friday, Denise was going to learn that her scheming had been for nothing, and I was going to be there to watch it happen. The days between my meeting with Mr. Pierce and the formal will reading passed slowly. Denise called me multiple times. Each call was more aggressive than the last. Have you thought about my offer? She demanded on Wednesday. I have thought about many things, I replied. Do not play games with me, Valeria. I am not bluffing. I will tell everyone what Marcus did. I will destroy his memory. I said nothing. Are you even listening? Denise shouted. You have until Friday, I know, I said. I will see you at the reading. Then I hung up. Margaret came over that night with wine and takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. We sat in my kitchen and I told her everything I had learned from Marcus's letter and from Mr. Pierce. So Marcus set a trap, Margaret said, pouring herself a second glass of wine. I would not call it a trap, more like a safety net. He knew Denise would try to take advantage of the situation. He made sure she could not. And the DNA test, Brandon is definitely Marcus's son. Margaret shook her head. I cannot believe Marcus carried that secret for 8 years. Every Christmas, every birthday, every family dinner. He sat across the table from Denise, knowing what they had done. I know, believe me, I know. Are you angry at him? I thought about the question. Was I angry? Yes. But I was also sad and confused and exhausted from feeling so many things at once. I am angry at a lot of people, I finally said. Marcus, for betraying me. Denise for being Denise. Myself for not seeing the signs sooner. None of this is your fault, Val. I know, but I still feel stupid. 12 years of marriage and I had no idea my husband had a child with my sister. Margaret reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You are not stupid. You are trusting. There is a difference. Marcus took advantage of that trust. That is on him, not you. We sat in silence for a while, drinking wine and eating food that I could barely taste. What are you going to do after Friday? Margaret asked eventually. I do not know. Take things one day at a time, I suppose. Figure out what kind of relationship I want with Brandon. You would still have a relationship with him. After everything, Brandon did not do anything wrong, I said. He is 8 years old. He did not ask to be born into this mess, and he is still my nephew, still my blood, and Marcus's son. Yes, and Marcus's son. Margaret studied me for a long moment. You are a better person than I am, Val. I do not think I could look at that child without seeing the betrayal. Maybe I said. Or maybe I am just tired of letting Denise's choices control my life. Brandon deserves better than her. Maybe I can be part of giving him something better. Maybe you can. I finished my wine and stared out the kitchen window at the backyard Marcus had designed, the lavender bushes he had planted, the stone pathway he had laid by hand. He was not a perfect husband. He made a terrible mistake that I might never fully understand. But he had also loved me. I believed that. Despite everything, I believed that. And now I had a choice. I could let the betrayal define the rest of my life, or I could find a way to move forward. On Friday morning, I chose forward. Friday arrived cold and gray, with clouds threatening rain that never came. I dressed carefully in a charcoal pantsuit and low heels. Professional, but not flashy. Margaret picked me up at 9:30 and drove me downtown to the offices of Pierce & Associates. You ready? she asked as we pulled into the parking garage. No, I admitted, but I am going anyway. That is the spirit. We took the elevator to the 4th floor and found the conference room where the reading would take place. Mr. Pierce was already there arranging papers at the head of a long mahogany table. His secretary sat in the corner with a laptop ready to record the proceedings. Denise had not arrived yet. Mrs. Reynolds, Mr. Pierce said, greeting me with a nod. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. Margaret and I sat on one side of the table. 2 chairs remained empty on the other side. At 9:58, the door opened. Denise walked in like she owned the place. She was wearing a black dress that was slightly too tight and heels that were slightly too high. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile was predatory. Behind her came my mother Gloria, wheeled in by a home care aide. Mom looked confused and tired, like she had not slept well. Brandon was not with them. Thank goodness for small mercies, Valeria Denise said, taking the seat directly across from me. I was not sure you would show up. Why would I miss this? Denise's smile flickered. She was expecting me to look beaten, defeated, ready to negotiate. Instead, I looked calm, because I knew something she did not. Mom reached out and patted my hand. I am so sorry, sweetheart. About Marcus, about everything. Thank you, Mom. Gloria looked between me and Denise with worried eyes. She could feel the tension in the room, but she did not understand its source. She would understand soon enough. Mr. Pierce cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming, he said. We are gathered today to read the last will and testament of Marcus Allen Reynolds. Before I begin, does anyone have any statements they wish to make? I do, Denise said, immediately standing up. Mr. Pierce raised an eyebrow. Ms. Lawson. Before you read whatever document you have, Denise said, everyone needs to know the truth about Marcus Reynolds. She turned to face Gloria. Mom, Marcus was not the man everyone thought he was. 8 years ago he had an affair with me, and Brandon is his son. Gloria gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. What she whispered. Denise, what are you saying? I am saying that Valeria's perfect husband was a cheater. Brandon is his biological child, and Valeria knew. She knew, and she was going to let Brandon be cut out of his father's estate. I remained silent. Let her talk. Let her dig her own grave. Denise continued. I have a will, a real will that Marcus wrote. He left half of everything to Brandon. Valeria was trying to hide it. She pulled out the forged document and slammed it on the table. This is what Marcus wanted, not whatever fake will that lawyer has been protecting. Mr. Pierce did not react to the outburst. He simply picked up the papers Denise had thrown down and examined them with the same calm expression he always wore. Ms. Lawson, he said, I have reviewed this document previously when Mrs. Reynolds brought it to my attention. It is not a valid will. Denise's face reddened. What do you mean, not valid? That is Marcus's signature. The signature appears authentic. Mr. Pierce agreed. However, this document lacks witness signatures, which are required by Tennessee law for a will to be legally binding. Additionally, the date on this document places its creation at a time when Marcus Reynolds was documented to be in London for business purposes. He could not have signed this in Nashville. You are lying, Denise spat. You are protecting her. I assure you I am not. My obligation is to the law and to my client's true wishes. This document does not represent either. Denise turned to me. You did this. You paid him off. I have done nothing except show up and listen, I said quietly. Denise looked like she wanted to leap across the table and strangle me. Only the presence of the witnesses kept her in her seat. Mr. Pierce, Gloria said shakily, What is the truth? Is Brandon really Marcus's son? Mr. Pierce nodded solemnly. DNA testing conducted 2 years ago confirmed that Marcus Reynolds was Brandon Lawson's biological father. That much of Ms. Lawson's claim is accurate. Gloria closed her eyes. Tears leaked down her wrinkled cheeks. "Oh, Denise," she murmured, "what have you done? What have I done?" Denise laughed bitterly. "I had an affair with a married man, a man who pursued me when he was supposed to be faithful to his wife. I am not the only guilty party here, Mother. I watched my sister rage and felt something I did not expect: pity. She genuinely believed she was the victim in this story. She had convinced herself that Marcus had pursued her, that she deserved compensation for years of secrecy. The truth was simpler and sadder. Denise had seen an opportunity and taken it, and when the consequences arrived, she looked for someone else to blame. "If everyone is finished," Mr. Pierce said, "I will proceed with the reading of the actual will." He opened a leather folder and removed a thick document. The last will and testament of Marcus Allen Reynolds, dated January 15th, 2 years ago. Mr. Pierce began reading. The legal language was dense, but the basic provisions were clear. The house in Germantown and all its contents went to me. 60% of the liquid assets, including savings investments and life insurance proceeds, went to me. 100% ownership of Reynolds Architecture and all associated business assets went to me. Denise's expression grew more confused with each clause. "Wait," she interrupted. "What about Brandon? What about his inheritance?" Mr. Pierce held up a hand. "I was just getting to that provision, Ms. Lawson." He continued reading. 40% of the liquid assets, estimated at $480,000, shall be placed in an irrevocable trust for the benefit of Brandon Lawson. The trustee of this fund shall be Valeria Ann Reynolds. Denise shot to her feet. "What?" "The trust shall be used exclusively for Brandon Lawson's educational expenses, medical care, and basic necessities as determined by the trustee. No funds shall be distributed directly to Denise Lawson under any circumstances." Denise's face went white. "He cannot do that," she said. "I am Brandon's mother. I should control his inheritance." Mr. Pierce continued as if she had not spoken. "If any evidence emerges that Denise Lawson has attempted to misappropriate trust funds or use Brandon's inheritance for personal benefit, full guardianship of the trust shall transfer to Valeria Reynolds with enhanced legal protections." Denise sank back into her chair. Furthermore, Mr. Pierce read, "If Denise Lawson challenges any provision of this will through legal action, the entire trust fund shall be donated to the General Scholarship Fund of Brandon's current public school. The fund shall benefit students in need, including, but not limited to, Brandon Lawson. But Denise Lawson shall have no access to or control over any portion of the funds." The room was completely silent. Denise stared at the table, her face cycling through emotions: shock, anger, disbelief, fear. "There is one final provision," Mr. Pierce said. He turned to the last page. Marcus Reynolds included a personal message for Denise Lawson. He requested that it be read aloud at the will reading. Denise looked up, her eyes red. Mr. Pierce cleared his throat and read, "To Denise Lawson, I have paid for your silence long enough. Now silence is the only thing you have left. If you truly love Brandon, you will allow Valeria to give our son the future he deserves. You do not have the ability to provide that future, and we both know it." Denise made a sound like a wounded animal. Gloria was weeping openly. "Mom," she kept saying, "Mom, I did not mean for any of this." But Gloria was not listening. She was looking at Denise with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment. Disgust. "You slept with your sister's husband," Gloria said quietly. "You blackmailed him for money. You lied to me for 8 years. And now you tried to steal from your own son's inheritance." She shook her head slowly. I do not know who you are anymore, Denise. I raised you better than this. I failed somewhere, and I do not know where, but I failed. Denise's mask finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. Mom, please. Gloria turned to the aide. Take me home. I need to rest. The aide wheeled her toward the door. Gloria did not look back. Denise sat frozen mascara running down her cheeks, staring at nothing. Mr. Pierce closed the folder. That concludes the reading. Mrs. Reynolds, if you have any questions about the estate or your duties as trustee, please contact my office at your convenience. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. I stood up. Margaret stood with me. We walked toward the door, passing Denise on the way. I paused beside her chair. Brandon deserves better, I said quietly. If you ever decide to be the mother he needs instead of the victim you want to be, you know where to find me. Denise did not respond. She just sat there, broken and alone, surrounded by the ashes of her failed scheme. I walked out of that office and into the cold Nashville morning. For the first time since Marcus died, I felt like I could breathe. The weeks after the will reading were quiet. Denise did not call me. She did not text. She did not send letters threatening legal action. According to what I heard through various family channels, she had consulted with a lawyer named Frank Dutton, who had advised her that challenging the will would be futile and expensive. She would lose everything if she tried. So she did nothing. I focused on putting my life back together. I returned to work at the library, grateful for the routine and the quiet. My colleagues welcomed me back with gentle smiles and offers of coffee runs. They did not ask about Marcus. They did not ask about the rumors that had begun circulating through Nashville's social circles. Margaret visited often. She brought food when I forgot to eat. She brought wine when I needed to talk. She brought silence when I needed to think. Marcus's company continued operating under the temporary leadership of Graham Finley, a longtime partner who had agreed to step in as CEO. The firm was stable, the projects were on track, and the employees seemed reassured by the continuity. I did not want to run an architecture firm. I was a librarian, not a businesswoman. But I was not ready to make decisions about selling or restructuring. That could wait. What could not wait was Brandon. 3 weeks after the will reading, I called Denise. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was flat, tired. What do you want? I want to see Brandon, I said. Silence. Why? She finally asked. So you can gloat? I am not gloating, Denise. I never wanted any of this. But Brandon exists. He is Marcus's son, and like it or not, I am responsible for his trust fund. I need to understand his situation if I am going to make good decisions about his future. More silence. Fine, Denise said. But I will be there when you visit. I do not trust you alone with him. That is fair. We arranged a time. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. I was about to meet my husband's secret child. I was about to look into the eyes of a boy who was living proof of the worst betrayal of my life. I did not know how I would feel. I only knew that I had to try. Saturday came faster than I expected. Denise lived in a small apartment complex in Antioch, about 20 minutes from my house in Germantown. The buildings were old and needed maintenance. The parking lot was cracked and weedy. It was not a bad neighborhood exactly, but it was not a good one either. I knocked on the door of Unit 214. Denise answered. She looked different from the last time I had seen her. Smaller, somehow. The fight had gone out of her. Come in, she said. The apartment was cramped but clean. A living room that doubled as a dining room. A tiny kitchen visible through a half wall. A hallway leading to what I assumed were bedrooms, and a bathroom. Brandon was sitting on the couch playing a video game on an old television. He looked up when I entered. Those green eyes, Marcus's eyes. My heart twisted. Brandon, Denise said, "This is your Aunt Valeria. She wants to talk to you." Brandon studied me with the wary intelligence of a child who had learned not to trust easily. "Hi," he said. "Hi, Brandon." I sat down on the other end of the couch. "Not too close, not too far. Do you remember me from the funeral?" I asked. He nodded. "You were crying." "Yes, I was very sad. Marcus was important to me." Brandon looked down at his video game controller. "Mom says Marcus was my real dad, not Derek." I glanced at Denise, who was standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed. "That is true," I said carefully. "Marcus was your biological father, but he never told me." "I know. That was wrong of him. He should have told you. Why did he not tell me?" I thought about how to answer. This was a question that deserved honesty, but also gentleness. "I think he was scared," I said, finally. "Adults get scared sometimes, just like kids do. He was scared of hurting people he loved. So he kept it a secret." Brandon considered this. "Are you mad at him?" "Yes," I admitted. "I am mad at him. But I am also sad. Because he is gone now and I cannot ask him why he did the things he did." Brandon nodded slowly as if this made sense to him. "I get mad at Mom sometimes," he said. "But I still love her." My throat tightened. "That is exactly right, Brandon. You can be mad at someone and still love them. Both things can be true at the same time." He looked at me with those green eyes, Marcus's eyes, and I saw something I did not expect. Hope. "Are you going to help me?" he asked. "Mom said you have money for me, for school and stuff." "I do," I said. "Your father left money for your education. I am in charge of making sure it is used properly." "Does that mean I can go to a better school, if that is what is best for you?" "Yes." Brandon smiled. It was the first real smile I had seen from him. "Cool." I smiled back despite everything. "Yeah," I said. "Cool." I stayed for an hour that first visit. Brandon showed me his video games. He told me about his school, which he did not like very much. He told me about his best friend, a boy named Diego who lived 2 floors up. When I left, Denise walked me to the door. "He likes you," she said. Her voice was grudging, but there was something else underneath, something that might have been gratitude. "He is a good kid," I said. "I know." We stood awkwardly for a moment. "I am not doing this for you," I said. "I want to be clear about that. I am doing this for Brandon and for Marcus. Because despite everything, Marcus wanted his son to have a good life." "I know," Denise said again. "But I am willing to work with you," I continued, "if you are willing to stop fighting me. Brandon needs stability. He needs adults in his life who can cooperate for his sake." Denise's jaw tightened. I could see the old defensiveness rising up, the urge to attack, to deflect, to blame. Then she exhaled, and it was gone. "Okay," she said, "for Brandon, for Brandon." I walked out of that apartment with something I had not felt in weeks. Purpose. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. Summer faded into fall, fall into winter, winter, into a tentative spring. I sold Marcus's BMW. I donated most of his clothes to charity. I kept the things that mattered: his book collection, his grandfather's pocket watch, the sketches he had made of houses we would never build together. The reading room he designed for me became my sanctuary. I spent evenings there with tea and novels, surrounded by shelves of books we had collected together over 12 years. It was not the same as having him there. Nothing would ever be the same. But it was peaceful in a way I had not expected. I returned to the library full-time. The familiar rhythm of checking in books, helping patrons, organizing community programs, gave structure to days that might otherwise have felt empty. Margaret remained my anchor. We had dinner together every Wednesday. She listened when I needed to talk. She distracted me with gossip and bad reality television when I needed to forget. Reynolds Architecture continued to thrive under Graham Finley's leadership. He proposed a transition plan that would eventually allow the firm to buy back Marcus's shares, giving me financial independence without requiring me to run a business I did not understand. I agreed to consider it. But the biggest change in my life was Brandon. I visited him twice a month at first, then every week. Then gradually I started picking him up for outings. The zoo, the science museum, the library where I worked, where he discovered a love of graphic novels that surprised both of us. I used the trust fund for practical things. A better school with smaller classes and more individual attention. Swim lessons at the YMCA. A tutor for his math homework, which had always been a struggle. Brandon flourished with the extra support. His grades improved. He made friends. He stopped flinching every time an adult raised their voice. Denise watched these changes from the sidelines. To her credit, she did not interfere. She got a job as a receptionist at a dental office, her first steady employment in years. She stopped asking me for money. She started showing up on time for custody exchanges. We were not friends. We would probably never be friends. But we had reached a truce. For Brandon's sake. For our own sanity. One Sunday in April, I took Brandon to the cemetery to visit Marcus's grave. We brought flowers. White roses, Marcus's favorite. Brandon stood in front of the headstone for a long time, reading and rereading the inscription. Marcus Allen Reynolds, beloved architect, husband, and friend, 1982 to 2024. Aunt Val Brandon said finally, "Should I be sad that he died? I did not really know him." I knelt down so we were at the same eye level. "You can feel however you feel," I said. "There are no rules about grief. Some people feel sad when someone dies. Some people feel confused. Some people feel nothing at all. All of those are okay." Brandon considered this. "I feel confused," he said. "I wish I knew him. But I did not. So I do not know how to miss him." "That makes sense," I said. "Maybe over time, as you learn more about him, you will find your own way to remember him." Brandon nodded. "Will you tell me about him?" he asked. "What he was like." I sat down on the grass beside the grave, and Brandon sat beside me. "He loved architecture," I began. "He loved designing buildings that made people feel something. He believed that a well-designed space could change someone's entire day." Brandon listened, his green eyes fixed on my face. He loved reading. He could spend hours in a used bookstore, just browsing. He said you never knew what you might find if you looked hard enough. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. "And he loved you, Brandon. He never got to show you, and that was his biggest regret. But he made sure you would be taken care of. The money for your school, your lessons, everything. That was him. That was his way of loving you even after he was gone." Brandon was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned his head against my shoulder. "Thanks, Aunt Val." I put my arm around him. "You are welcome, buddy. Buddy." We sat there for a while, the two of us in the spring sunshine next to the grave of a man who had made terrible mistakes but had also tried, in his flawed way, to make things right. It was not the ending I would have chosen. But it was an ending I could live with. 1 year after Marcus's funeral, I hosted Brandon's 9th birthday party at my house in Germantown. It was a small gathering. Just Brandon, a few friends from his new school, Margaret, my mother Gloria, and, somewhat awkwardly, Denise. We had cake, we had games, we had a magician who pulled a rabbit out of a hat and made Brandon laugh so hard he almost fell off his chair. When the party wound down and the guests began leaving, Denise found me in the kitchen. "Thank you for doing this," she said. Her voice was stiff, uncomfortable, but sincere. "Brandon deserves a good birthday." "He does." We stood in silence, the sounds of children's laughter drifting in from the backyard. "I owe you an apology," Denise said suddenly, "for everything, the affair, the blackmail, the forged will, all of it." I waited. "I was jealous of you my whole life," she continued. You always had everything I wanted: the grades, the scholarship, the husband, the house. I told myself I deserved some of what you had. I told myself I was owed. She shook her head. I was wrong. You did not owe me anything, and I hurt you because I was too selfish to see that. I let her words settle. I appreciate you saying that. I said, finally. It does not change what happened, but I appreciate it. I know it does not change anything. I just wanted you to know that I know. I know what I did was wrong. She looked at me with something I had never seen in her eyes before. Respect. You are a better person than I am, Valeria. The way you have taken care of Brandon despite everything. I could never do that. You could, I said, if you decided to. That is the thing about being a better person, Denise. It is not about who you are. It is about who you choose to be. She blinked, surprised by my response. Maybe, she said. No, maybe. It is true. You have a choice every single day. Be bitter about the past or build something better for the future. Brandon is watching. He is learning from you. What do you want him to learn? Denise did not answer. But I saw something shift in her expression. A crack in the armor she had worn her entire life. I did not hug her. We were not there yet. Maybe we would never be there, but we had taken a step. That evening, after everyone left, I sat in my reading room with a cup of tea. I thought about the past year, the grief, the betrayal, the anger, and then the unexpected gifts. Brandon, a renewed sense of purpose, the knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever imagined. Marcus was not a perfect husband. He made a terrible mistake that changed the course of multiple lives. But he had also spent years trying to protect me from the fallout. The will was not just about money. It was his way of saying, I know I hurt you, but I will not let anyone hurt you more. I picked up a framed photo from the side table. Marcus and me on our wedding day, standing under that trellis of white roses. I forgive you, I said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I set the photo back down. Then I picked up my book and began to read. People have asked me how I could take care of Brandon after what his mother did to me. My answer is simple. Brandon did not betray me. He is just a child who needed someone to show up for him. Marcus was not a perfect husband. He made a terrible mistake that I will never fully understand. But he also spent years trying to protect me from the consequences of that mistake. The will was not just about money. It was his way of saying he was sorry, his way of trying to make things right. As for Denise, I do not know if we will ever be real sisters again. Some wounds do not heal completely. But we have learned to coexist for Brandon's sake. And sometimes, that is enough. If you are going through something similar, if someone you trusted has betrayed you, remember this. Their actions reflect who they are, not who you are. You get to choose what happens next. You can let the betrayal destroy you, or you can let it redirect you towards something meaningful. That day at the lawyer's office, when the final page was read, everything did flip. But not just for Denise, for me too. I stopped being Marcus's widow. I started being Valeria again, and that was the greatest inheritance he could have left me, the permission to move on. So if you are facing a betrayal right now, whether from a spouse, a sibling, a friend, or anyone else you trusted, I want to ask you this. What will you choose to do with the pain? Will you let it consume you, or will you let it transform you? Drop your answer in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if this story touched you, if it made you think, if it gave you hope that there is life after betrayal, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me through all the twists and turns. I hope you find the peace you are looking for. I hope you find the strength to move forward. And I hope you remember always that you are enough, exactly as you are. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Until next time.